It's almost Shabbos. Let's just recap some things I think that are essential, okay? This is from the Hayom Yom of yesterday or the day before. Take heed and listen, O Israel. The present age is the appointed time for the redemption by our righteous Mashiach, Messiah. The hardships we are experiencing are the labor pains of Mashiach. And Israel will be redeemed solely through Teshuvah. Don't believe the false prophets who promise you salvation and consolation after the war ends. Remember the words of God. Cursed be a man who trusts in mortals, making flesh his strength, and turns his heart away from God. Return, O Israel, to God your Lord, and prepare yourself and your family to greet Mashiach, who is coming in the immediate future. The Lubavitcher Rebbe Rayatz made this declaration during World War II. In the more than half a century that has followed, our people's yearning for the coming of Mashiach has become characterized by a sense of imminence. And this has been heightened by the Mashiach campaign the Rebbe mounted to communicate this message to people everywhere. Okay, so just to highlight this, the power of belief in Mashiach, because everyone believes in Mashiach is coming today, but do we really, right? So this is a story. Once, while the thousands of Hasidim were singing together during a pause between sichos, between talks that the Rebbe would give over, at a Farbrengen, which is a communal gathering with singing and Torah and drinking, a noted rabbi approached the Rebbe and asked, and by the way, I copy and pasted this directly from the Hayom Yom, and I love that they didn't capitalize the R in rabbi, because rabbis today don't deserve a capital R. They're fake rabbis. So a noted rabbi approached the Rebbe, capital R, the Rebbe, and asked, why is there such a need for the Rebbe to remind people that Mashiach is arriving soon? Doesn't everyone here believe that already? Yeah, we all believe Mashiach's coming soon, right? The Rebbe responded by asking a seemingly unrelated question. Would you be prepared to give a loan to so-and-so? Of course, the rabbi answered. The Rebbe asked further, and would you be prepared to extend that loan until Mashiach arrives? The rabbi responded with a shrug of the shoulders and a facial expression that betrayed a certain hesitation. A moment later, without another word from the Rebbe, he realized that he had just received the answer to his question. Cool. Love it, good. Here you have some protests, yeah? What's going on here? It's protests. You see religious Jews. They don't like what's going on in this so-called, Jewish state. I don't think people in America or non-Jews or whatever, people that are supporting Israel, but they don't really get what's going on the inside, I don't think they really understand the tension involved. It's not just a hostage deal or the Haredi draft. No, these are just expressions of a deep-rooted issue that authentic Torah Jews have issue with the state of Israel representing them, claiming that they are the Jewish state, blah, 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 blah. No. There's a very high tension, and people need to understand this, that the Zionist state, Bibi Netanyahu, Ben Gvir, all these politicians, Smotrich, none of them represent Hashem, none of them represent true Torah, none of them represent authentic Judaism. Authentic Judaism is not represented by the state of Israel. Look at this. They have women holding guns. Yeah? These people are not guarding God's commandments and fulfilling God's commandments. They're not. I'm saying these soldiers and these cops that are harassing Orthodox Jews, they're not representing Judaism. They're not going to quote you a Bible verse if you ask them, on what authority are you arresting me? On what authority are you beating me up? They're not going to quote you a Bible verse. They'll quote you some British law that's in effect since the British Mandate. The law in Israel is effectively British law, extended to this day, and we're following a British law system. There is no Torah values, there is no Torah law. All right. This is a good piece. We're not going to go through it right now, but it has to do with who is eligible for charity. Who can you give charity to, and who's allowed to request charity and live off of charity funds. It's very relevant, very important. We're not going to go through now. You can on your own time, or maybe later if I have the time and maybe we'll go through it. This is very, very long. I don't want to go through the whole thing, but I do want to point out a few things. This has to do with hostages, okay? So, on what conditions do you release a hostage? How much do you pay for a hostage? Who do you release first? If there's multiple hostages and you can only release one of them or two, like, how does that work, right? So it starts, this piece, so we start with the Mishnah, okay? It says, "Hamaycher avdei legoy lechutz la'aretz." If someone sells his slave to a Gentile or even to a Jew, but he sells him to a Jew outside of Israel, yatzav en chayron. This slave that he sold he sold his slave. His slave is no longer considered, according to the biblical law, he's not a slave. Meaning if he escapes his new owner, he didn't do anything wrong and he's free to go. He's good to go. He's not a slave anymore. Okay? According to biblical law, there's such a concept as a slave. How do you acquire a slave? Different conversation for a different time. But generally, a Jewish slave can sell himself as a slave. How did he become a slave? Because he had debts and he couldn't pay, so he sells himself to a master. The master pays his debts. He goes free at the Jubilee. I think that's what I know or think I know. A non-Jewish slave may be a little bit different. How you acquire him, I'm not quite sure. Anyways, you don't release a hostage. You don't redeem a hostage. You don't redeem a hostage for more than the value of their worth. Every person has a value that they're worth. If I damage someone, I have to pay back the damages. So there's different damages. There's the tsar, which is the pain I caused him. We evaluate how much would someone be paid to go through such pain. If you cause someone pain, physically pain, how much would I think, I might be wrong, but this is what I remember from like 12, 13, 14, 15, I don't know, years old, probably not 14, I was already like not studying, probably like whatever, 10 years old. I don't know how old I was when I learned this stuff. It's a long time ago, so I don't quite remember, but pretty much how do you evaluate things? You say in an open market, if we ask someone, how much money would it take for us to pay you in order that you would go through such pain or such embarrassment or such whatever, the normal person would say, I would take $100,000 in order for you to afflict me with such embarrassment or such pain. So that's what this guy is obligated to pay the guy he caused it to, right? So every person has a worth on him, how much he's worth. If you cut off someone's arm, he's now worth less. It could be in the past he was able to work a certain job and get paid a certain money, be worth a certain money. Now you cut off his arms, you have to pay him how much the difference in value. He used to be worth X, now he's worth Y. You have to pay him the difference. That's kind of how it works, more or less on one foot, without knowing too much. That's how it's okay. So you don't redeem a hostage for more than his worth. There's a market value per person. There's a market value per person. You don't redeem a hostage and pay ransom more than he's worth. And you don't escape a hostage because of rectification of the world. So you don't help a hostage escape from his scenario. If someone's held hostage, you don't break in with the IDF and capture him back and escape with him because of the rectification of the world. I don't know. We're going to have to see what that means. I'm just trying my best to translate literally word for word. I'm not giving an explanation until we can see further. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel Omer mipnei takonas hashivuyin. So Rabbi Shimon, son of Gamliel, he says, why don't you release the hostages, like by helping them escape or with the IDF? Why don't you do that? It's not because of the rectification of the world, but it's because of the rectification of the hostages. Meaning, it's not for the betterment of the world at large, it's for the betterment of the hostages themselves. Okay, we're going to have to see what all this means. And we don't take holy books or phylacteries or mezuzah scrolls that you put on the doorways of your home. You don't take those from the goyim, from the nations, more than the value of their worth. You don't pay more than their worth for the betterment of the world. Okay. This is a Mishnah in Maseches Gittin, chapter 4, Mishnah 6. Okay. Now, the Gemara says there, what does the Gemara say? The Gemara says, they asked a question. They asked, this that they said for the rectification or the betterment of the world, what are you talking about? Is it Mishum Duchka de Tziburuhu? Does it have to do with, I'm just reading the English translation here because I don't know how to translate. Is it for the betterment of the world? Is that due to the financial pressure of the community? Is it because it's going to put a financial pressure on the community? Oy, Dilma, or maybe Mishum Deloy Ligravu Vilaisa Tfei. Or perhaps it is because the result of this will be that they will not seize and bring additional captives, as they will see that it is not worthwhile for them to take Jews captive. So let's read the English translation. This is a very loose translation from Safari. It's not word for word. Let's use their translation for now because I don't know enough to explain this properly. So a dilemma was raised before the sages with regard to this expression, for the betterment of the world, right? You don't help hostages escape for the betterment of the world. Is it due to the financial pressure of the community? I'm sorry. Maybe that you don't, I'm sorry. Maybe we're talking about you don't pay more than they're worth. I don't know what we're talking about, but this that the Mishnah said for the betterment of the world, is it talking about the financial pressure of the community? Is the concern that the increase in price will lead to the community assuming financial pressures it will not be able to manage? Or perhaps it is because the result of this will be that they will not seize and bring additional captives, as they will see that it is not worthwhile for them to take Jews captives. So I'm hoping at this point you can see how it's relevant, right? We're talking 2,000 years ago this stuff was written. You can see how it's relevant today to redeeming hostages that the Israeli government, you know how Bibi Netanyahu was, I don't know, supposedly Bibi Netanyahu was involved with the forming of Hamas in order that the Palestinians shouldn't get a state. He calculated, apparently, this is what I heard, what I read, I don't know. He didn't want the Palestinians to have a state because Israel would lose part of its land. And they don't want the Palestinians to have a successful state within the borders of Israel. So what did he do? Because they were on their way to have a state through the Palestinian Authority or whatever, you know. So he invested heavily in forming Hamas, in raising funds and training and giving Hamas power, so that the world at large would see, listen, you can't give the Palestinians a state. It's not like this Palestinian Authority that's like more moderate, even though they're like also terrorists, but they're more moderate terrorists. If you give them a state, they're not going to be the ones in power. It's going to be this militant Hamas, kind of like America funded ISIS, right? I'm just saying, don't blame Israel for being these evil funders of terrorists. America does the same thing with ISIS, you know. I don't know which president it was, but Americans funded and started ISIS, just like Bibi Netanyahu funded and started Hamas. So whatever. I'm not trying to get too much into conspiracy theories or whatever. I'm pretty sure this is all factual information. You can check yourself with a quick search on the internet, you know. But anyways, let's get back to the text, okay? So, Tashimat, come in here. The Levi Bar Darga Parka Livrate Bisleiser Alfe Din Rezahav. This is the name of a person. Levi, the son of Darga, he redeemed his daughter with 13,000 gold dinars, which was a lot of money, more than her worth apparently. Okay. All this English is extra commentary. It's not a word-for-word translation. They're just saying this indicates that the private citizens may pay excessive sums to redeem a captive if they so choose. Okay, maybe. Abaye returns and says, like, Amar Abaye said, Uman leimalon dim ritzon chachamim avad. And who's saying that he did this according to the will of the sages? Like, how are you bringing a proof to me that this one guy paid a lot of money to redeem his daughters? Maybe he did the wrong thing. Maybe he wasn't allowed to do it and he just did it. How's that a proof that a private citizen is allowed to redeem a hostage for more than they're worth? Maybe he didn't do it according to the divine will. Maybe he did something wrong. You know, who's to say? You know, I'm saying I asked my friend today, who I consider to be my rabbi. I asked him what he thinks about redeeming the current hostage situation if it follows biblical law, because you're not allowed to pay more than the value of a hostage. Because why? Because then they're just going to keep taking hostages to get millions of dollars per head. So you're not allowed to pay more than a normal amount. Whatever they're worth, you can pay, not more than that. So I asked him, how does that apply to today's hostage situation, the hostage deal? How much do you know about the hostage deal? Does it go in accordance with Torah law? He told me he doesn't really know too much about the hostage deal, but he said, listen, if it was my kids, I wouldn't really care. I'd pay whatever to get them back, right? So that's the same thing the Gemara is saying now. The Gemara is saying, like, how do you know what this guy did was correct? Maybe he just wanted to redeem his daughters, right? Maybe he went against the desire and the will of the sages, right? Okay. And we don't break free. We don't help the hostages escape. Why? Because of the rectification or the betterment of the world. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel Omer. So Rabbi Shimon, the son of Gamliel, says, not for the betterment of the world. No, it's not for the world at large benefit. No, it's for the benefit of the hostages. It's for the benefit of the hostages. Meaning what? I'm not sure, but maybe like if you're going to break one hostage out, like they have 10 captives, and you break one of them out, the other 9 are going to suffer now because you broke one out. The other 9 are going to suffer now. So you can't help them escape because now the other 9 are going to suffer. Meaning you can redeem them. You can pay their value and redeem them. You can't help them escape because now the other 9 are going to suffer. You get it? So my benayu, what's the difference between these two opinions? That you're not, right? So you're not, right? The Mishnah says you're not allowed to help the hostages escape. So the Tanakama, the first opinion says why can't you help the hostages escape? Why not? Because of the betterment of the world. Shimon ben Gamliel, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says no, it's because of the betterment of the hostages. So what's the difference between these two opinions? The reason why you can't break hostages free through military or idea force. There's a difference. The difference is, what if there's only one hostage? If these captors, they only have one hostage, if you cannot break the guy out because of the betterment of the world, but if they only have one hostage, so break him out. Who cares? But we'll have to see further because I don't really get what I'm saying. I'm just saying what I know to be true. Let's just see further. But hold the thought. But if the difference is, if you cannot break the guy free because of the other hostages, now the other hostages are going to suffer because you broke one free. Well, if they only have one hostage, then go take the IDF and break him free. Who cares? There's no other hostages, right? So that's a difference. That's a nafkamino. That's a difference. Okay? We could see the English because it's not a word for a translation. They had a lot of commentary. It might help us understand. So the Mishnah taught, and one may not aid the captives in their attempt to escape from their captors for the betterment of the world. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel says, no, it's for the betterment of the captives. The Gemara asks, what's the difference between the two reasons given? The Gemara answers, there's a difference between them when there is only one captive. If the ordinance was instituted for the betterment of the other captives so that the kidnapper should not avenge a captive's escape by treating the others with cruelty, then if there's only one captive to begin with, one may help him escape. If it was instituted so that kidnappers in general will not act restrictively with their captives, meaning in general they shouldn't be super strict with their captives, tie them up in dungeons because the IDF might release them, then in that case it would be prohibited as well, right? Meaning, what's the reasoning why you're not allowed to break a hostage free with force? Is it because in the future they might deal with hostages very, 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 very roughly? So in that case, if there's only one hostage, you still cannot break him free. But if that's not the reason, if it's not for future captives and captives in general for the betterment of the world, but no, it's specifically for these captives that we're worried about, so then if there's only one captive, break him free. Nuke them, do whatever you want to do, destroy the whole freaking world to get them free. It doesn't matter. Because we're only concerned with the betterment of this captive, and we got him, right? That's the difference. Okay. Binasei Rav Nachman b'chashan kidra bidayhu. The daughters of Rabbi Nachman, they would stir a boiling pot with their bare hands. Okay? And people thought, this is not in the words, I don't see this in the words, this is like added commentary, I guess, from Safari, but I'm not sure. And people thought that the heat did not harm them due to their righteousness. So, Kashale Rav Elish. Rav Elish, Rabbi Elish had a problem, he had a difficulty. It's written, Ksiv, it's written. Adam echad me'elef matzasi v'isha b'chol eila le matzasi. It's written, a man, 1 of 1,000 I have found, and a woman among all those have I not found. This is from Ecclesiastes, Koheles, whatever. Yeah, one man from 1,000 I found, and a woman from all them I didn't find. I don't know the context or what he's talking about, but Ha'ika binase de Rav Nachman. So he's saying, but what do you mean? Don't we have the daughters of Rav Nachman? Aren't there Rav Nachman's daughters who were exceptionally righteous? So I have no clue the context. I really don't understand what we're talking about, but Gira Malu Milsa Vishtavion Vishtavie Iuname Bidayo. This caused that they were taken captive. And Rav Ilish was also taken captive with them. So there was the daughters of Rav Nachman, they were taken captive, and the guy who commented about them, apparently, was also taken captive. Something to do with the evil eye. I don't get it, I don't know. We can look up the commentaries, we could do deep dives, we're not doing that. We're just going through quickly, as trying to understand. I'm telling you, I don't really know what's going on, but it's fine. We are fulfilling the biblical commandment of Torah study, and hopefully we're being enlightened in the way. Even if not, we're not getting no enlightenment, it's still fine. We're fulfilling a biblical commandment and obligation to study Torah. We're studying Torah, that's what we're doing right now. Okay, Yom Echad Hava Yosef Gabe Hahu Gavra. So one day he was sitting with him, a certain man who knew the language of the birds. Asa Arva V'Kakarile. A raven came and called to him. He called to Rav Ilish. That's what it says in English. They called to Rav Ilish. Who's Rav Ilish? He's the one that said something about Rav Nachman's daughters, and then he got kidnapped and captured with Rav Nachman's daughters. Okay, so one day a raven came and captured and called to Rav Ilish while he's sitting in captivity with a guy who knew the language of the birds. A raven comes and calls to this rabbi of Ilish. Amarle, my kamar. So Rav Ilish said to the man, what is the raven saying? Because the man knew the language, right? Amarle, the man said, Ilish barach, Ilish barach. He said to Rav Ilish, what's the raven saying? He's saying that Ilish escape, Ilish escape. You should go escape, right? Amar arva shakarahu v'lasamech nale. Rav Ilish said, this is a lying raven, and I don't rely on them. I don't rely on this raven. He's lying. Adhachi, while this was happening, asa yaina v'kakare. So while this was happening, then a dove came and called to him. Called to this Rav Ilish. Amarle, so Rav Ilish said to this other man who knew the language of the birds, my kamar, what's this dove saying? Amarle, so the man said to this Rav Ilish, Ilish barach, Ilish barach. He's saying the same thing. Ilish escape, Ilish escape. Amar, this Rav Ilish said, Knesset Yisrael kioni mesila. The congregation of Israel is compared to a dove, right? Shema mina misrachish linisa. So I understand from this occurrence that a miracle will occur for me. Amar, he said, Ezel echazei benasei Rav Nachman. I'm going to go see the daughters of Rav Nachman that he got captured together with them. I'm going to go see them. I kaiman behemnusa ahadrinu. If they are standing in their faith, I will return them home with me. Yeah? But only if they're standing with their faith, I will return them with me. I'll escape with them. Yeah, I'll take them with me. Amar, so he said, I guess this is Rav Ilish said, Nishay, the woman, kol mile de islahu sadran lahadre bevesakise. Women tell all of their secret matters to each other in the bathroom. This, by the way, the whole video is worth it just for this one line. This was written over 2,000 years ago, yeah? Yeah, and it remains today. Women tell their secrets to each other in the bathroom. Women flock together to the bathroom. Every man knows. It's kind of like a running joke. Women go to the bathroom and they tell each other secrets, right? They go together. They don't go, like a man, you don't go to the bathroom and tell your friend, come with me, I'm going to go pee. Women, they don't like to go to the bathroom by themselves. They go with their friends and then, I don't know, it's like weird like that, but they tell each other secrets there. So he said the woman, everything that they have to them, they tell one to the other, they relate one to the other in the bathroom. Shaminu Dekaman, he overheard them saying, right? So he went, I guess apparently he stalked them to the bathroom and he heard to listen to what they're saying, not to peeping Tom them, but to listen to what they're saying, and he heard what they were saying. Ade govrin unhar dae govrin. I don't know how to translate that, so we're going to the English. He said he heard them saying, these captors are now our husbands, and the men of Nehardia, to whom we were married, are our husbands. So like, these guys are, these captors of ours, they are our men, our husbands. And the our husbands in our Hardai, whatever, our men in our Hardai, they're also our husbands. Leimalu lishavayahu dilirachakinu mehacha. Okay, we should tell our captors to distance us from here so that our husbands should not come to this area and hear that we are here and redeem us and take us home. Right, so that our husband shouldn't come here and hear that we're here and redeem us and take us home. Meaning what? They wanted to stay with their captors. Yeah, they kind of had this like Stockholm syndrome going on. They didn't want to be redeemed. They were saying in the bathroom while he's listening, this rabbi, he heard them saying, let's tell our captors, move us somewhere else, because our husbands, they're going to come here, they're going to hear we're here, and they're going to try to redeem us and take us home. But we'd rather stay in captivity. We'd rather stay with our kidnappers. They want to stay with Hamas. These specific women, I don't know if it's what. Yeah, I don't know what how much you can apply to current captives today. I don't know, but this was the case there. Okay. Come arakasa ihu vahu gavra ledideyas richish leinisa varbe mabara vahu gavra ashkechu vekatlu. I don't know how to translate, so we're just going to rely on the English for here, okay? Upon hearing this, Rav Elish arose, right, and escaped. So he escaped. He and that man who knew the language of the birds came to a river crossing. A miracle happened for him, this rabbi, and he crossed the river on a ferry. And the captors found that man and killed him. So the man who knew the language of the birds, the captors found him and killed him. When Rav Nachman's daughters, these two girls who, or whatever, however many girls there were, that daughters of Rav Nachman that were captured with Rav Elish, when they were returned and they came back from their captivity, this Rabbi Elish that was captured with them, he said they would stir the pot with witchcraft, and that is why they were not burned by the boiling pot, but it was not due to their righteousness. He was saying they're not that righteous. They were doing their tricks with magic. How did he know that? I don't know. Maybe. I mean, to me, reading this, how did he know that? What's the information given? The only information we were given was that they wanted to stay with their captors. So apparently he understood from that they weren't that righteous. A righteous woman wouldn't want to stay with her captor. They were involved with witchcraft and bad things, and that's why they wanted to stay with their captors. And they weren't that righteous. And okay? Okay. Here, we're going to go to the Rambam. Maimonides in his Mishnah Torah. So, we're going to skip the Hebrew now. I want to kind of get through this quickly and just, okay? So, the redemption of captives receives priority over sustaining the poor and providing them with clothing. Indeed, there is no greater mitzvah than the redemption of captives. For a captive is among those who are hungry, thirsty, and unclothed, and he is in mortal peril. If someone pays no attention to his redemption, he violates the negative commandments, do not harden your heart or close your hand. And that's from Deuteronomy 15:7. Do not stand by when the blood of your neighbor is in danger. That's Leviticus 19:16. And the verse, he shall not oppress him with exhausting work in your presence. That's from Leviticus 25:53. And he has negated the observance of the positive commandments. You shall certainly open up your hand to him. Deuteronomy 15:8. And your brother shall live with you. Deuteronomy 19:18. Love your neighbor as yourself, Leviticus 19:18. Save those who are taken for death, Proverbs 24:11. And many other decrees of this nature. There is no mitzvah as great as the redemption of captives. No greater commandments, okay? When the inhabitants of a city collected money for building a synagogue and the purpose associated with a mitzvah arose, they may use the money for that purpose. If they purchase stones and beams, they should not sell them and use the proceeds for a purpose associated with the mitzvah unless what? Other than the redemption of captives. Even though they brought the stones to the building site, cut the beams and shaped them to size and prepared everything for building, it should all be sold, but only for the sake of redeeming captives. If they built the synagogue and completed it, it should not be sold. Instead, the funds necessary to redeem the captives should be raised from the community. Okay, redeeming captives is very important. Could even sell the beams that were going to be used to build the synagogues in order to redeem captives. We do not redeem captives for more than their worth for the benefit of the world at large. In other words, so that enemies will not pursue people to hold them captive. We do not assist captives in escaping for the benefit of the world at large. In other words, so that enemies will not oppress captives seriously and be very strict with guarding them, when guarding them. When a person sold himself and his children as servants to Gentiles or borrowed money from them and they held him captive or imprisoned him because of his failure to pay the loan, it is a mitzvah to redeem him the first or second time he is held. If this happens a third time, we don't redeem him. Okay? We do, however, redeem the sons after the father's passing. The father sold them, not they didn't sell themselves. Okay? After the father dies, you could redeem the sons, even if it's already the third time. If they sought to kill him, we redeem him from the hands, even if he has been held captive several times. So this is only if they're not going to kill him. If they're going to kill him, you redeem him right away, even if it's many times happening. So if it's the own person's fault and he keeps getting himself into the situation, you don't redeem him the third time unless they're about to kill him. Okay? Fine. When a servant is held captive, so we're talking about apparently we're talking not about a Jew, but he's a servant of a Jew. Okay? When a servant is held captive, since he immersed himself in the mikvah, a ritual bath, and he accepted the mitzvos, he should be redeemed like a Jew who has been taken captive. When a captive abandons his faith, even with regard to only one mitzvah, example, he eats meat from animals that were not ritually slaughtered. But again, this is key here. Only with the intent of angering God or the like, it is forbidden to redeem him. So, if you have a captive who abandons his faith, now I don't know if we're talking about a Jew or just a slave of a Jew. I'm not sure, but someone who he says, I want to anger God. Yeah, he's taken captive and he gives up his Judaism. Not because he just can't take it anymore. No, because he wants to anger God. Such a person you cannot redeem. Okay? A woman receives precedence over a man with regard to being given sustenance, clothing, and to be redeemed from captivity. If you have two paupers or two people that were captured, one's a man and one's a woman, you help the woman first with funds or with redeeming her from captivity. The rationale is that it is common for a man to beg, but not for a woman, and that is extremely embarrassing for her. So the man can take care of himself. If he's poor, he can go in the streets and beg. A woman, it's very embarrassing for her. If they were both held in captivity and they were both being solicited for transgression, meaning they're both going to be raped, the man should be redeemed first because this is not ordinary for him. So this is a very powerful statement, but normally you redeem a woman hostage first, okay? Because the man can take care of himself, even in captivity, apparently. But if these people that kidnap them are going to rape both of them, they're like so low and dark and negative that they want to rape the man too, you redeem the man first. Why? Because this is not ordinary for him, meaning the man has never had a penis in his butt. He's never been raped. He's never had been fucked, okay? Sorry for my language. It's not appropriate in the context of Torah study, but you understand what I'm saying. A woman, yes, she's being raped and it's very hard for her, but it's a lot worse for the man. The man has never undergone such a thing. So in the case where they're going to rape them both, meaning they're apparently we always consider a woman who was captured, she's going to be raped. So you redeem her first before you redeem the men, because they're going to rape the woman. But if they're so low that they're going to rape the men too, you redeem the men first, because they cannot handle such a thing. The woman, she's been maybe not raped, but she's had sex before. You know what I mean? She's used to such a thing. The man is not used to such a thing, and it's going to be much harder on him, so you redeem him first. Apparently, that's the rationale, okay? He who shuts his eyes against the ransoming of captives transgresses the negative precepts, thou shalt not harden thy heart, and thou shalt not shut thy hand. Also this, neither shalt thou stand against the blood of thy neighbor, and this, he shall not rule with vigor over him in thy sight, and he neglects the positive precepts, thou shalt surely open thy hand unto him, and that thy brother may live with thee, and thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself, and deliver them that are carried away unto death. This is from the Shulchan Aruch, so we switch now. We're no longer in Maimonides, Rambam, we're now in Shulchan Aruch, Yosef Karo, okay? Every moment that one delays unnecessarily the ransoming of a captive, it is as if he were to shed blood. So it's like you murdered the captive. Every moment. If you don't redeem them, it's like you murdered them. Captives are not to be ransomed at an unreasonable cost for the safety of society. Otherwise, the enemies would exert every effort to capture victims. But a man may ransom himself. He can ransom at any price. So also, a scholar should be ransomed at a greater price. Or even a student who gives promise of becoming a great scholar. Okay? You could redeem them for more than they're worth. As to whether one's wife is considered another or oneself, see Ebenezer, whatever. All right, I gotta run. Catch you later. Good Shabbat.